Good afternoon. Welcome to Los Cantos. Hope you're all well. It's been raining now for 4 or 5 days since we finished pruning, and we've had around about 250 millimeters of rainfall in that time. And that has made it far too wet to go and play in the orchard. So today I've retreated into the house and I'm going to play with my other passion, which is making bread. And I thought I'd share the simple recipe that I use with you. It's sort of modelled on a ciabatta, but then put in tins rather than as a slipper. I use just the simple ingredients of flour, water, salt, yeast, and a little bit of our Los Cantos de la Era cold pressed extra virgin olive oil. We're at the next step, which is to dry mix the ingredients. I'm using 300 grams of strong white bread flour, 12% protein. I'm using 200 grams of wholemeal flour, again 12% protein, and I'm using 100 grams of spelt wheat, which is used to flavour the bread with a little bit of a sort of nutty background flavour. To this I'm also adding 2 teaspoonfuls of salt, and I've dry mixed it already, as you can see, in a nice big bowl which is easy to work on. I then take my 7-gram packet of dried baker's yeast and I sprinkle it over the top, and then I'm going to give that a very quick mix in as well to get it nice and homogeneously mixed within the flour. Probably take a little bit more time than I do at this, but I want to keep it short. And then I've got 600 grams of water, which I'm going to pour into the flour. I'm then going to mix that roughly. Now, 600 grams of flour and 600 grams of water is a very high hydration rate. It's 100%, which is pretty wet, and makes a dough which a lot of people would say is a bit difficult to work with. I don't, because I've developed this method, which I actually think is very, very easy. So I've made it into a sort of mixed wet paste. It's all nicely mixed in. Just show it to you. What I'm going to do now is cover it with a clean tea towel. Just put that little bit in. And I'm now going to leave it for about 20-25 minutes to do what is called, it's a French word, and I've lost it. But basically what happens is, over the next 20 minutes of not moving it, the gluten start to develop. And this will make it much easier when we come to the next stage, which is the first kneading and then the subsequent kneadings afterwards. So we're at the 25-minute mark and we've come to the next stage. And before I start that, I just want to update you with the word I'd forgotten, which was auto-lees, which you can look up on Google or whatever you use. So you'll notice that I've cleared up since we last looked, and I now have a little bowl of water, warm water, which I can put my fingers in. It's not warm for the sake of the bread, it's warm to keep my little pinkies warm. So I'll take the top off the bread and show it to you. I don't know if you can see that, how clearly you can see that, but it's big, and already it's beginning to rise. Now, I use the water to stop the dough sticking to my fingers. What I'm going to do and try and show you at the same time is I wet my hand, and then I go in a round action, and I keep turning the bowl, wetting it a little bit more, and folding, just pulling and folding the dough into the middle, or on top of itself. And I'm going to do this for a couple of minutes, perhaps not that long, until it is in a nice bowl. You can see already it's beginning to look more like a lump. And don't worry about getting it wet any wetter, because it's already 100% hydration, and a little bit of water on the surface isn't going to make any very little difference. Better to keep your fingers wet and to be able to work nice and clearly. And then what I'm going to do is, once I've got it into that nice little bowl, I'll give it another minutes turning off camera, so don't take up too long. But then what I'm simply going to do is put my clean tea towel back over the top of it to keep the bugs off it. And this time I'm going to leave it for approximately 45 minutes. So see you again in 45 minutes time. So here we are. It's actually an hour after I left you. Reason for it being an hour was that at 45 minutes it hadn't quite risen enough. Probably because the temperature in here is more like 18, 19 degrees and not the sort of 22 to 24, which is ideal. But if we take a look, and I'll try and let you see, it's now already doubled in size, almost. And what I'm now simply going to do is put my fingers back in the warm water, and I'm going to repeat what I did last time by just folding over and over. And I'll just try and get a little bit closer for you to be able to see exactly what I'm doing. So I'm just picking it up and folding it over on the top of it. And I'm going to do that again for a minute, 2 minutes. I've used baker's yeast out of a packet. This recipe you could also do with your own sourdough. The only thing with sourdough, of course, is that you've got to be far more patient. I'd be hoping that we'd be in the position to be able to sample a bit of this bread in 3 hours, 3.5 hours, whereas with sourdough, it's more likely to take 6 to 12 hours, maybe even overnight. My neighbour Jose makes fantastic bread, and he makes his out of sourdough, and he does it in a beautiful brick bread oven. I'm afraid at this point, all we have is a Moulinex €100 electric cooker and a bowl, and nothing as fancy. But time will tell. We might get there. So anyway, I'm going to continue to fold it. As you can see, really becoming nice, and it's getting a life of its own. And we're going to leave it now for another hour, and then we'll come back to it when hopefully it'll be at a point where we can actually divide it into the tins. Another 45 minutes has gone by, and if we take the now somewhat dirty tea towel off, you can see that the dough has doubled in size. If I give it a little shake, you can see it moving, bring it a little bit closer to the camera, and you can actually see some bubbles that have nicely formed in it already. Now, what I'm going to do now is, again, just give it a final, very gentle fold, because what I'm trying to do is just make sure that there's some little bubbles of air in it, because that's going to give it a lovely texture when it eventually cooks. And you can see, look, there's the CO2 building up. If I take it, bring it up close, you can see a little bubble in there now. And I'm being pretty gentle with it, because I don't want to lose that lovely live texture. So I think that'll be enough. And you can see it's now beautifully there. It's not sticking to anything because I've kept my fingers wet. I'm just going to put it down there to one side for a minute, move the water. I'm going to give my fingers a quick rinse and dry. Piece of paper ready. And we're going to take our Los Cantos oil, pour a little bit in the bottom of each tin. It does two things. Not only does it help to stop the dough and the bread from sticking in the tin, but it also just absorbs into the outside of the bread, giving it a lovely goldeny colour that tastes, and that lovely taste of virgin olive oil. So that's just simply oiled the tins up. Don't have to use a tin. Use anything you want. Flat plate. And now I'm going to very gently divide the dough into two. Just with my fingers, very gently doing it. Ripping it apart. When I've got it apart, I'm going to lift it and I'm going to drop that one in there. And I'm going to take the other half and I'm going to simply drop it in there. And then those two little beauties are going to be allowed to rise now until they... Okay, we've now got to the exciting bit. We're about 35 minutes since we let it rise. And now for the last little bit is going to be a little drizzle of Los Cantos olive oil over the top of the bread. Each loaf. And then we're going to pop each loaf into the oven. There goes one. And here comes the second, which is, I must have had a little bit more in it than the other one, so we'll just put a little bit of oil on it, just a dribble, or a drizzle, and we put that in as well. And then just to help get a golden crust, we add a little bit of water in to create steam, and then we shut the door, and we leave it for approximately 35 minutes, or until it looks done. Moment of truth. The bread was in the oven for about 35 minutes and the smell in the house is now gorgeous. And we'll take each loaf, give it a little shake, let it out. Oh, it smells lovely. The same with the round one. Take it out, have a closer look. What do you think of that? Very nice, isn't it? Put it down there. And there we have approximately 3 hours work to produce two really nice looking pieces of bread.
You know, Simon, why I love you. One of the things, because I love you. Because you make this wonderful bread. It's so good. But what makes this bread especially good is our olive oil. Now, I show you how I taste Simon's bread with our Los Cantos de la Era oil. First, I take a plate. Okay, normally it's a smaller, but this big plate, and you can see here the oil. Then I take this beautiful, beautiful, fresh Simon's bread and cut these smaller pieces like that. And then I take these small pieces, dip into the oil, just coat this beautiful, and it's perfect. And always when I eat it, I imagine sunshine, very nice warm weather, by the pool, olives, glass of wine, what I don't have right now, but this is a scenery. Let's try one more. Oh my God. And look how beautiful it is. It's not just tasty. It's beautiful. And good.
So my guess is you're giving it the thumbs up.